a video that I need to upload in a few hours that I'm editing at the moment. There it is. But this is my office workspace and there is a huge gap because I broke a similar frame that was here. So let's do something with that instead. So I didn't find these exact same frames. So I got this frame instead. What I'm trying to do is have a little embroidered artwork for my channel. So I have these two types of craft papers. One is obviously really tiny and it's got these printed papers on it of thickness about 230 GSM, kind of like this. And this one also has like a lot of printed papers on it, which is cool and also pretty thick. So what I want to do is on this frame, I want to have here be the dragon tails. So like 4 levels of words. I want them all to be in like different backgrounds with embroidery on them. So I think I'm just going to do it now, and if there is anything that needs explanation, then we will have voiceover.
Okay, so on to voiceover me. I have all this craft paper and nothing to do with it. So to utilize them all and add a little splash of color to the artwork, I decided to embroider each letter on a differently colored paper. That, and because the small papers had some cute patterns on it, but they weren't big enough. And if I did use the big papers, well, I'm not skilled enough to center my words perfectly, so if I made one mistake, I would have to throw away the whole paper. Not to mention, I'd need to start all over again. That seemed too high risk for me. So small patches of craft paper it is. I have 5 words. Here be the dragon tails. The dragon tails is meant to be 1 letter, but there isn't enough space for a word that long, so 5 words it is. I cut strips of papers of about 4 centimeters in height each. If I leave a buffer of 5 millimeters on all sides, the letters would still be 3 centimeters tall, which sounds pretty good to me. Once I had all the strips, I wrote the text I needed on all those papers, cut out extra from the width so that the words looked centered on each paper, which worked out quite nice because I would not be able to center them intentionally while writing. So the thing about embroidering on paper is you can't embroider on thin paper because pulling the thread will only tear the paper apart. But you can embroider on thick paper. It holds up pretty well. You know what? Maybe too well. So well that you can't poke holes in it while you're embroidering. You need to prep the paper for that. You see, on thick paper, there's no way to know if your needle is in the right place under the paper before you poke the hole. Your needle could be not sharp enough. If you apply pressure with a blunt needle, it will bend the paper without poking it, which would destroy the integrity of the paper. And if you do poke it in the wrong place, unlike fabric, the hole will remain in the paper forever. And it will be an eyesore, obviously, so you need to pre-poke all the holes in your letters. I used a sharp needle to poke all the holes along the letters. I use the words in cursive, so most of the letters are in a nice single stroke. The needle that I used for poking the holes was almost the same thickness as my embroidering needle I used later on, so this turned out to be quite an effective process. I recommend using a thimble. My channel accent is yellow color. That's what all my text is in, and it just makes me feel all warm inside. So amongst the 2 options that I had for embroidering the letters, I chose the yellow one. What is your favorite color? I stitched my letters with a classic chain stitch. It was one of the few stitches that I learned like really early on. Running stitch, back stitch, and then chain stitch. I didn't want to use the stem stitch because it'd be too thin. Chain stitch has like a nice width to it, and especially because my letters were going to be big, almost 3.5 centimeters tall, I opted for the chain stitch. I think we're all made up of things that we love. This channel is still finding its niche, and while I am calling it a hobby channel for the moment, I do wonder what direction the channel will eventually pivot in. I just love learning new stuff and creating stuff, so that is where it is at for now. I hope that when I'm taking a break from embroidering and, I don't know, crocheting for a few weeks in between, it still remains fun to watch. What is your favorite hobby? Here's some nice footage of me embroidering while watching some TV. So here we are, the end of the journey. I really love how it turned out. The letters are in a nice contrast to the craft paper, and the scraps of paper are in a nice contrast with the white frame and the white background. It's got a nice pastel kind of vibe to it. All in all, I'm quite happy with how this looks. This has been me for this week. I'll meet you on Sunday. Toodles!